bring and discuss them in the class. Okay, feel free.
Okay.
Can you see the screen that I'm sharing, Zed?
Yes, sure.
So let's just begin with a quick recap from the last class. Okay, what we did in our biology classes till now. There have been 2 classes, right? Okay, so I'm audible, right, Zed?
Yes, sir.
If you lose my voice or something, please let me know. Okay, you
Okay.
can we might feel a little network issue today. Okay, so let's begin. So in the last class, we basically started with the fundamentals of, we started with reproduction as a life process and as a defined characteristic property of life. And I think you know and you understand the difference between the two clearly now,
Yes, sir.
right? And we also studied that reproduction is basically a process by which an offspring is produced by an organism which is similar to the parent in its adult form. And through
Yes.
adult word, we also realize that why we are using adult word in the definition, because there can also be a direct development or an indirect development, correct? And these are the
Yeah.
examples. Everything is clear with direct development, indirect development, oviparous, viviparous, right? Egg laying
Yeah.
and direct birth, right? Then we started with types of reproduction, in which it's asexual and sexual. And we know that in asexual mode of reproduction, there is no fusion of gametes. Okay, this is
Yes,
the
sir.
one most important fundamental that you have to understand. Did I also have given you the definitions for both?
Yes, sir. You have given.
Yes. Okay. I think Hiba has joined. Good evening, Hiba. How are you? Hiba, am I audible to you?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Good evening. Welcome. So we were just I was just giving a brief recap of the last class, whatever we have done till now. So we went on to discuss differences between sexual and asexual, and I've given you the definition for both. We also discussed a concept of ploidy, okay, haploidy and diploidy. Ploidy means copy of genome, right? And I have asked you to go back and read meiosis and mitosis, correct?
Yes, sir.
So you went back to read meiosis and mitosis, and we have discussed meiosis and mitosis also, right? Or we have not done it?
Sir, not yet.
Not yet, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So we have not done it yet. So today we'll do that. But you understood the concept of ploidy? Anyone in Hiba or Zed, any doubts in the concept of ploidy?
No, sir.
No. So it's a copy of genome. If it's haploid, it has a single copy. If it's diploid, it has 2 copies. Tetraploid means 3 copies. We also discussed DNA, chromosome, genes, and alleles. These words are clear. Did we discuss it or not?
So alleles are left.
Allele.
Yeah.
Okay.
We
Yes.
did, but small.
Yes, we did DNA, we did chromosome, right? We also did
Yeah.
gene. I can see that we also did alleles.
Alleles, yeah, like we did short discussion and
Yeah, with the short. Okay, we'll come back to alleles once more. So Hiba, do you understand allele? Do you remember allele from last class discussion? Hiba, you remember this? We're discussing alleles in the last class. I think
I wasn't there.
Okay, you were not there. Okay, so let me give a quick recap for all the words, because Hiba was not there. Okay, then we'll go to meiosis and mitosis. Okay, Zed? So,
okay.
Zed, why don't you give us a recap of DNA and chromosome, because I think this you understand. Then I'll go. Okay. Yes, quick.
So
On the board also.
DNA basically means deoxyribonucleic acid. Then it is present inside the chromosome, forming a bundle of protein, forming on the protein,
Yes. So
Uh,
it's not forming on the protein, it's wrapped around protein to get
wrapped
condensed.
around. Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Yes.
Remember this analogy of
Uh,
spool, a thread spool, this one here. Remember this?
yeah, yeah.
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 Okay. Go on.
It it consists
It is a long
it consists it consists of sugar molecule in the center and the phosphate group on the head, and on the base it have a new nitrogenous base. It has nitrogenous base.
Yes,
Uh,
this is not in the center, Zed. So you have to
uh,
understand it is going in this direction. It is like the base, the backbone of DNA, like this thing is called the backbone, okay? And
okay.
things which are coming out inside are the bases. So the backbone is made up of sugar and phosphate. So they are in one line. Can you see this?
Hmm.
And
Okay.
from this line, perpendicular is the base which comes towards inside. You can see the diagram, right?
Okay.
Yes. So the backbone of DNA is formed by sugar and phosphate, correct? Okay.
Uh, then it consists of mm, I'm not going like so yeah, I can explain.
Consists of four types of different bases,
Yeah,
nitrogen. Okay.
like we discussed basically what is DNA in four types.
Yes.
So ATGC,
Yes.
uh, adeno,
Adenosine,
adenosine thymine, gynosine,
yes. Guanosine and cytosine. Guanine and cytosine. Okay. It's guanine. Guanine. Nine. Then we went on to discuss chromosome. Right, Zed?
yes.
Chromosome.
So
Just
can you wait, please?
what is
I'm having a call from my father.
yeah, okay. So I'll take over from here.
Okay.
So then we discussed it's for you, Hiba. Okay, you are paying attention?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Then we went on to discuss chromosome. A chromosome is basically a compact form of DNA. So DNA is compacted like a thread around a spool and can be stored in a very limited space inside the cell because in the form of chromosome. But as we know that we need something, a base over which the DNA can be wrapped and condensed. So that is done by proteins. So these histone proteins are the proteins over which this DNA is wrapped so that it can get condensed and become a chromosome. Is it clear, Hiba?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Rest two things were gene and allele. So gene, as I have told you, gene are they are the part of DNA itself. So if you imagine DNA as a long thread, okay. So on that thread, a segment of that thread will be a gene, okay. And I also told you that uh, we can always recognize a gene from the start codon. So it has a starting point and a stop point, and in between all the sequences makes a gene. Now this start codon is AUG all the time, and how I remember is AUG is short for August, right? Remember? And the way I remember it is August was when India got independent. So India as an independent nation started from August. So every gene starts from August. AUG as the start codon. Okay, clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes. And then there are three stop codons with which every gene ends. And the sequence in between is the functional. We call this whole gene from start codon to stop codon, this segment as ORF, open reading frame. Just write it down. I don't have enough space here, but you write it down, open reading frame. So every functional gene has to have an open reading frame. Is it clear? Okay. Then what is allele? So remember in class 11 studying about the Mendelian cross and the Mendelian genetics? So in the Mendelian cross, there was a capital T and a small t, which you used to write for tallness and dwarfness characters. Remember?
Yes, sir.
And if capital T is present in the is present with small t, only capital T will be expressed because it is dominant, the law of dominance of Mendel. But still we have two different types of genes. So these two are different type of genes. One gene type give rise to tall character and the other give rise to dwarf character. But what characteristic? Basically they both encode for height, correct? So there is something called characteristic at the end. Yes, Ed. There is something called characteristic at the top for which we can have genes. And if we have multiple different types of gene for the same characteristic, we call them alleles. Okay. So for the same gene, we can have allele A and allele B and different types of other alleles. Is it clear, everyone?
Yes.
Yes. So they are just different types of different forms of functional genes. So we represent capital T and small t. This is one example. Then we discussed difference between life cycle and lifespan. Okay. Hiba, you were there in this class when we,
No, sir.
no, you missed that. Okay. So what is the difference between life cycle and lifespan? Zed, would you like to pitch in or should I continue?
So life cycle starts from the fertilization of egg and ends at the natural sorry ends at the maturity or puberty or sexual maturity of an organism.
Organism. Yes.
Then
Yes.
lifespan starts from the birth of an organism, the day it was born, and the natural death of the organism it ends.
Right, correct. So lifespan is the total complete span for which a living system can live. So it has a starting point and an end point. It starts and it ends. That's why it's called a span. Life cycle is called a cycle because it is repetitive. It repeats itself. And life cycle starts from after fertilization to sexual maturity. So when fertilization happens, zygote is formed. From zygote onwards, when the baby is born or comes out of the egg and it reaches a sexual maturity where it can again begin the same cycle of making gametes and doing fertilization. Is it clear? Is it clear, Hiba?
Yes, sir.
So life cycle is only limited for reproductive points, okay, for the reproductive cycle. That's life cycle. But lifespan is the complete age, the natural age of any organism. So which one is bigger, Hiba? Which is longer all the time? Which one will be longer always? Life cycle or lifespan? Hiba, what do you think? Which one will be longer? Am I audible, Zed?
The life
Yes, sir.
cycle.
Yeah.
Yes. So Hiba is saying life cycle. Okay, Hiba, let's try to understand it again. Okay. See, life cycle for a human. Let's take an example of human because it's easier to understand all the time. We can directly apply it to ourselves. So for a human, the life cycle starts before the birth. Okay. So when fertilization happens, this is where life cycle begins because two gametes fertilize, make a zygote. That zygote becomes an embryo and that embryo stays inside the mother's womb and develop as a baby. We call it fetus. So zygote, embryo, fetus. Then the baby takes birth and then it reaches sexual maturity, which is called puberty. And when does a human, at what age human attains puberty, Hiba? So let's calculate it. How many years do you think it takes for a human to attain puberty or sexual maturity? It is slightly different for males and females, but an average. Tell me an average. Any idea? Is there a lag in my voice, Zed?
No, sir.
No, right. Because Hiba is always taking some time to unmute. You are facing any problem, Hiba, regarding the unmuting thing? You can write it down also in chat. So Zed, let's calculate it for Hiba. I think she is hearing. So how many years it takes for a human to be sexually mature?
It's about 13 for female,
Yes.
and for males it is about 16, no, 14 14 to 15. maybe.
Yes, so it's slightly longer for males, but I think for males it is 13, around 13, and for females it's even less.
It's
Nowadays,
9.
females are getting sexually matured at the age of 11 also, 11, 12, 13. So that's the range. So let's pick 13 as a number, okay? So 13 years for sexual maturity. How long for the development inside the womb? How long a human baby stays inside the womb when it is developing?
It's 9 months.
9 months. So overall, what is the total length of life cycle for a human?
Total length of life cycle is 9 months. 9 months plus
Plus
13 years.
13 years. So approximately how long is it?
It's
Around 14 years, right? Let's say.
14 years.
So the total life cycle for a human is 14 years, but what is the total lifespan for a human?
Lifespan is about 13 years. From
Life
the lifespan, sorry.
lifespan.
Lifespan birth, yeah, 70 to 80 years. 70 to 80
Exactly.
years.
It's from birth to natural death.
Yeah.
So if you allow a human to live naturally and die naturally, it will live for around 70 years, let's say. So
Yes.
14 years versus 70 years, which is longer?
70 years.
Life cycle or lifespan?
Lifespan.
Okay, Hiba, is it clear to you?
Yes, sir.
So lifespan will always be longer than life cycle for organisms, because life cycle only makes sense with respect to reproductive age, the reproductive cycle. But lifespan is the total life. Is it clear? That's why we call it span. So span, it's always have to be the longest. Is it okay, Hiba? Do you understand? No doubts?
Sir.
So if you have any doubts, we'll not move forward unless and until that doubt is clear. I also gave you an assignment to go back and make a list of lifespans of common organisms.
Sir, I made it. Yeah.
You made it, Zed?
Yeah.
So let's begin with your list. And Hiba, I would appreciate if you just can keep noting what Zed is dictating. Okay. So Zed, tell me some interesting things about lifespan. Okay, let me start with one. Let me start with one. So the lifespan for human, Hiba, we all know is around 70 years, right? The average lifespan for a human is 70 years, correct, Hiba?
Yes, sir.
You know what is the average lifespan for many parrot species? How long do you think parrots should live? Parrots and parakeets. Any idea, any approximate idea? How long do you think they should live? They are birds. So how long a bird can live? Any idea, Hiba? Zed.
So according to me, it's about 80 years.
80. 80.
80. 80.
80
More than
or 18 or just 8?
80. 80.
80. So you mean to say that parents can outlive humans? Parents live, sorry, parrots live longer than humans.
Yes.
Yes, that's correct. So lifespan can be bizarre for certain organisms. So Zed, you should dictate that list, and Hiba, you should keep noting, and I will also write it somewhere. Okay, let me write it here as an assignment. Okay, so tell me, what have you found?
For an ant queen, it's about 3 years. Ant queen, and ant workers can live 1.5 year. Then I got that.
Even a tiny ant can live for 3 years.
Yes.
Nice, right? Does it look bizarre to you? But what is the life cycle of an ant? Any idea? It's in days. It's a few days, around 2 weeks. For a fly and an ant, the life cycle is 2 weeks, 14 days. So life cycle is 14 days and lifespan is 3 years. Do you understand the difference now, Hiba and Zed? Hiba?
Yes, sir.
We are making a list of lifespans here, okay?
Then
yes, tell me more. Yes, then
next is bat. Bat can live around 24 years.
Okay, that's 24 years. Bats can live for 24 years. And have you also figured out their life cycle?
No, sir.
No. So okay. So you, whatever we are writing right now, you and Hiba both will go back and figure out their life cycles. Okay, Hiba, is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So write down. Bat lives for 24 years lifespan. Next.
Bear lives for around 40 years.
What?
Bear. Bear.
Okay, bear. It lives for 40 years.
40 years.
Perfect. And
Then it's a one turtle known as box turtle. It lives
Box.
around 120 BOX.
Box turtle. Okay.
Yeah.
Box turtle lives for
123 years.
120 plus years. Okay.
Okay.
Nice.
Then a bull can live around 28 years.
Bull can live for 28 years. Now look here. A bull is very big an organism, right?
Yeah.
Looks like a bull must be living for very, very long time. But a bull lives for 28 years, and a turtle can never be as big as a bull, right? Turtle are small organisms. They live for 120 years. And there are some species of parrots, So you said 80 years. There are some species of parrots that can live for around 140 years. It's like 2 lifespans of a human. Okay.
Yes.
You have more examples?
Yeah. I have more.
Yes.
Cat can live around 25 years.
Cats 25 years. Okay.
Then like chicken can live around 15 years.
Okay.
Then cow can live 22 years.
Cow 22 years. Okay.
Then deer can live 35 years.
Deer 35 years.
Dog can live 22 years.
Dogs at max they can live 22 years. Mostly all the dogs that we have live only for 15 to 16 years, but this is okay, the upper limit, right? Then
Yes. Then goat can live 15 years.
Goat.
Yeah, 15.
Yes, common organism around us, 15 years. Now look at goat and chicken. They almost live equal, right? Their lifespans are equal. But if you see their life cycles, they are very, very different. A chicken lays egg, whereas a goat gives birth to the baby, correct?
Yes, sir.
And both can live up to 15 years in the wild. But the beautiful part is when you will go and figure out their life cycles. So I hope, Hiba, you are noting all this down because that is a part of your assignment. You have to go and figure out their life cycles. Yes, good. More examples there?
Then I took some other examples like Galapagos land tortoise.
Okay,
it's about 193.
Yes. Tortoise lives even longer. 193 years is average. They very well can cross 200 years and 250 years also in some cases. And
then one is giant tortoise. It's about giant tortoise.
Giant tortoise. It crosses 200 years, right?
Yeah.
So let's keep it in tortoise only. Anything different?
Then one more was hummingbird. 8 years.
Yes. A hummingbird is a very, very small bird. If you see hummingbird, they are very small, very, very small. Just sometimes they are just slightly bigger than a bumblebee. And they have this bizarre ability to flap their wings, 100 times in 1 second. So in 1 second, they can flap their wings at a vibrating speed. And this is what keeps hummingbird. So hummingbirds can just hover in air at a specific place without changing.
I've seen that.
Yes, they always do that. And that power comes from that powerful muscle in their wings. And they use so much of energy doing that. Remember, how many of you have seen helicopters doing this thing? So army helicopters can also hover.
Yeah.
The helicopters which are used for rescue, they can hover in the air at a particular place, right? Because their motor blades also are very, very powerful and they rotate very fast. So when you rotate very fast, you can create a pull that can keep you lifted and airborne. Hummingbird utilizes very huge amount of energy for flying and hovering, and they are very, very small, but still they can live for 8 years. Okay, which means that they are actually living more than many of our pets. Many species of cats and dogs also do not live for 8 years. They become very old by that time. Okay, all these ages are natural ages, wild ages. You have more, Zed?
Yes, I made a list very long. So maybe it's
I
okay to
think the
do.
common organisms are all covered here, right?
Yeah.
So,
You can give for like mouse.
yes,
It's
mouse,
very common.
please.
Yeah, 4 years. Mouse, four
Mouse
years.
can live up to 4 years.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. And
Mm,
any
koi.
fish? Any
Koi.
fish is there in your list?
Yeah, I
Which
got.
fish? So Hiba, you can also make a list of your own, okay? Because the longer the list,
Yeah,
and you should categorize them. If you do not have to remember exact age, lifespan of every organism, just categorize them in less than 10 years, 10 to 25, 25 to 50, 50 to 100, 100 plus, 150 plus, like that. Okay, Hiba?
then
Yes, sir.
catfish,
Yes, catfish is common. Catfish lives for
60 years.
6 years.
60.
60
60.
years.
Yeah.
So a fish living as much as like a human.
Yeah.
Right. So, and now go and figure out their life cycles. This is where you will see a bizarre distinction between organisms. Okay, you will do that, both of you. Okay, so your assignment is to go and figure out the life cycle for this list now. Okay. So in the last class, when we discussed lifespan and life cycle, we after that we also started the asexual mode. And I told you about the asexual mode, that the first most important thing is that gamete fusion does not happen in asexual mode, correct? There's gametogenesis may or may not happen, by which I mean if there is a gamete formation, it's not necessary that gamete has fused. The gametes can just very well form and be there. And only one sex is involved. Remember, we did not appreciated the word parent and use the word sex instead, because I told you
Yes.
that many organisms have both the sexes present in the same body, which is called hermaphrodites or bisexual or monoecious. Now, Hiba, for you, the word Aphrodite always is associated for sex related characters. Okay. The word bisexual, the bi means two. So bisexual means both the sexes when they're present. And monoecious means single body. The word mono means single and oecious comes from body. Is it clear, Hiba?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So these three terms are used in similar contexts in biology. And we started with asexual mode, which contains binary fission. So Hiba, these are not very difficult. You can just go to NCERT and read this part there. And if you have any difficulty, you can come back to me and we can discuss. Okay. Just the basics. Binary fission and their examples, fragmentation, regeneration, and budding we did. So we did till here. Is it clear, Hiba?
Yes, sir.
Now, for your sake, because you missed this class, so I think Zed, we also discussed that what is the difference between fragmentation and regeneration, remember?
Yes,
Because
sir, we did.
parallelly. Can you explain it to Hiba that what is special about fragmentation and what is special about regeneration?
The special thing about fragmentation is that uh, like if we take the example of Hydra, it can make fragments of itself. So
At will, can it make fragments of itself at will?
no, it can't make its fragments on its will. If someone cuts it, so it
Any
can
external
reform.
factor, any predator,
Yeah.
any external factor, because of any injury, if it is cut in two parts, then both the parts grow into individual organisms, correct? This is what you want to say.
Yes.
And what was regeneration, Zed?
Regeneration basically we did on lizard. Lizard can regrow their regeneration. Am I right?
Yes,
Lizards
yes.
only.
Yeah, you're going
Yeah,
right.
lizards after deattaching their tail,
Mhm.
they can regenerate their tails
Correct.
completely.
Correct.
Yeah.
So regeneration, and Hiba, you can also pitch in this discussion to understand better. See, regeneration is, for many organisms, it is just an ability to regrow the lost body parts. Okay. For example, a tail in lizard, and I also discussed that in a human finger, if you slice the tip of the human finger, it can regrow back. But if the bone gets along with it, then it cannot regrow back, right? There is a limit till which the fingertip, if cut, can regrow back. Correct? Remember we discussed that? We can also regrow back parts of our liver. So human liver can regenerate. Human nails can regenerate. Remember, Zed?
Yes, sir.
I also told you about the minimum threshold, right? This part. So in regeneration, for many organisms, there is a limit. Okay, Hiba? So there's a limit. If you lose beyond that, it will not grow back. For example, if a lizard just loses its tail, it can regrow back its tail. But if I cut a lizard right from the middle, from the abdomen, look at the diagram. If I cut a lizard from here, do you think lizard can grow back? Hiba, Hiba, you're speaking?
No, sir, it can't.
It can't, right? It will die. So the ability to regenerate back depends on the minimum threshold. Like what is the minimum number of cells required to regrow something back? Now that minimum threshold is different from organism to organism. Like in planaria and in hydra, whatever amount of like sections you make, so you cut them into 10 sections, then 10 new hydra will be formed. But that's not true for lizard. So regeneration is, for many organisms, it's just an ability. It's not a mode of reproduction. But for other organisms like hydra, it is a mode of reproduction because they can regenerate completely independent organisms from their lost parts. So I gave you this definition that it is the ability to regrow back the lost part, or in other organisms, regrow back the organism from the lost part, right? This is what I asked you to write, Zed.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So for Hiba, write down, I'm repeating this for you. Regeneration is the ability by which you're writing, Hiba?
Yes, sir.
Yes, regeneration is the ability by which many organisms can regrow their lost body parts. For example, tails in lizard. Tails in lizard. On the other hand, for other organisms, it is a mode of reproduction. It is a mode of reproduction where new organisms are formed, from different body parts, for example, hydra and planaria. All three are multicellular organisms, multicellular eukaryotic. Is it clear, Hiba and Zed?
Yes.
But for some, it is just an ability, not a mode of reproduction. For others, it is a mode of reproduction. That's why we study regeneration here. But a question comes in boards, and the question is, why regeneration is not considered as a true mode of reproduction. So will you be able to write the answer? Question is, write down the question, why regeneration is not considered a true mode of reproduction. Tell me, what will you write if this question comes in your school exams? Zed.
We can write like regeneration is not considered as the
True mode of reproduction.
True mode of reproduction, as the organism can't grow, can't regenerate on itself. It needs an out factor. We can write other factors like by cutting.
Yeah, see, simply because no, that external factor point also applies to fragmentation, correct? Even for fragmentation, we need external factor to first fragment that organism into various parts. But why regeneration is not considered a true mode of reproduction? For that, you will write, because all the organisms that show the ability of regeneration may not reproduce through that mode. Sometimes they can only regrow certain organs back, but they cannot reproduce altogether. What do we mean by reproduction? Making an exact copy. So there was one organism and another copy came, correct? With fragmentation, we can do that. If you cut hydra into two, from anywhere, two hydras will be formed. Is it clear, Zed? See here. But if you cut a lizard from half, two lizards will not be formed. The lizard will simply die. It can only regenerate tail, nothing else. It cannot regenerate head back. If I cut the head of a lizard, it will die. So regeneration for a lizard is not a mode of reproduction. Is it clear to you, Zed?
Yes, sir.
But for planaria, regeneration is a mode of reproduction, because you cut planaria from anywhere, it will just, both the parts will become two independent organisms. So there will be a copy made. And unless and until there is a copy of an organism, we cannot call it reproduction. Only copies, if copies are made, then it is reproduction, reproduce. Make sense? Is it clear, both Hiba and Zed?
Yes.
Hiba, clear to you? Perfectly clear. You will write the answer. Right. And then comes budding. Budding is simple. Budding is shown by hydra, yeast. So examples here are hydra. Hydra is one basic example. And just one moment. So it is hydra, or it can be yeast. Okay, yeast is also known as baker's yeast. Because why we call it baker yeast? We use yeast for baking, yeast powder. You put something in the, anyone has baked a cake? Hiba or Zed?
Yes.
Have you baked a cake? Or you know about baking, the process of baking?
Yeah.
They use
Because
yeast
like
powder.
yeast
Yes.
powder, yeah.
Yeast powder is used because yeast is, what does yeast do that it helps in baking?
Yeast makes spores like for
Yeast,
no.
yeast does fermentation simply. And the process of fermentation releases CO2. And when that CO2 moves through that base of the bread, it makes the bread porous and fluffy, right? The cake is porous and fluffy, right?
Yes.
Yes, it because of yeast. So budding is shown by hydra and yeast. If it is shown by a yeast, this is a yeast, a big parent yeast with a nucleus, and there will be a small bud at the tip, okay, with its own nucleus. So this will be a bud yeast, and this will be the mother yeast. Now this bud will keep growing till a point where it is now capable of independent existence, and it will get detached from the mother and start living as a new organism. So here also a new copy is being formed, and budding can happen at will whenever the organism wants to reproduce, and those organisms which can show budding always can show budding at their will. Whereas for fragmentation and regeneration to happen, they have to depend on an external factor to first get cut into pieces. Is it clear? Is that?
Yes, sir.
And Hiba, both? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So this is another question in boards where they ask, among fragmentation, regeneration, and budding, which is the most natural mode of reproduction for Hydra and why? So Hiba, tell me the answer. Write down the question. Among fragmentation, regeneration, and budding, among fragmentation, regeneration, and budding, because all the three are shown by Hydra. Hydra shows many different modes. It shows fragmentation, regeneration, and budding. So among the three, which is a more natural and suitable mode of reproduction for Hydra? Question written?
Yes, sir.
Answer. Hiba, what will you write? Which do you think is a more natural, more preferred way?
Budding.
Budding. Perfect. Why do you think so, Hiba? Just speak, just speak. See if you'll speak, either you will be wrong or you will learn. That's all. And both the scenarios are perfectly normal. No problem. So do not hesitate from speaking. Speak up, even if it is wrong. Make all the mistakes here in the class. Do not leave it for exams. So why do you think budding is more suitable and natural? Hiba. Hiba, I'm audible to you, right? Zaid, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Sir.
Yes. So I can hear Hiba now. Hiba, can you? I was asking, why do you think budding is more natural and more preferred way? I know you know the answer. You're just not speaking. So I'll go to Zaid. Zaid, tell me. Help your fellow.
So budding is preferred as among the three. Budding is preferred as the most
More
as the
suitable.
natural, more suitable process of asexual reproduction in Hydra.
Because
Because birds can form on or region birds can form on their own
yes,
and don't need an external factor.
exactly. For this mode of reproduction, Hydra does not need to depend on any external factor. Hiba, you are knowing the answer, correct? I'm sure you knew it.
No, sir.
No? So now you know it?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So budding can happen whenever Hydra wants to reproduce. But when Hydra wants to reproduce, it is sitting alone. It can start reproducing through budding, but it cannot start reproducing through fragmentation unless and until some factor, some environmental factor or some external factor or some predator, some other organism breaks Hydra into different parts. Okay? Clear, Hiba?
Yes, sir.
Yes, perfect. So today, let's move forward now. Everything is clear till now. No confusion, no doubts, right? Now let's go to asexual reproduction in plants. Specifically, asexual reproduction in higher plants. So when we talk about higher plants, these are the plants which are around us, and we call that process of asexually reproducing in plants as vegetative propagation. Okay, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Now, what does the word means? What is vegetative and what is propagation? These two are English words. Vegetative means only the vegetative parts of the plants are involved. Vegetative parts means those parts which do not make gametes, which cannot undergo sexual reproduction, like stem, leaves, and roots. Is it clear?
Okay.
So if a plant, write down, if a plant is propagating, and propagation means what do we mean by to propagate something? Like I said, Zed, to propagate this answer. What does it mean?
To make, to do.
Do what?
To
To spread,
spread.
right?
Yeah.
To spread it to multiple other sources, correct? So vegetative propagation means that you spread or you make copies of that plant by using the parts, the non-reproductive parts of the plant. Is it clear to both of you? Non-reproductive parts is the word.
Okay.
And which are the non-reproductive parts of the plant? Root, stem, and leaves. Flowers are reproductive parts, correct? So if a plant is reproducing through flowers, it is sexual reproduction, because there they are reproductive parts, and we'll come to that later. But if a plant is not reproducing through seeds or flowers, then it is called vegetative propagation. Is it clear?
Yes, sir. Clear.
Both of you? Now write down this definition. Vegetative propagation is an asexual method in plants. Vegetative propagation is an asexual method in plants that involves reproduction of plants through non-reproductive structures, or through structures like leaves, roots, and stem. Leaves, roots, and stem. These will be the three type of structures that we use for vegetative propagation. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Next point, write down. In vegetative propagation, fragmentation and regeneration of these plant parts happens. Fragmentation and regeneration of these plant parts happen or takes place. Okay, is it clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Now what do we understand by these three sentences is that, see, vegetative propagation is nothing but, if you understand it carefully, it is just fragmentation and regeneration happening in plants. Now let me tell you how. Now vegetative propagation can be of two types, okay? One is the natural vegetative propagation and the other is artificial. Artificial is the one that we do for propagating the plants. So natural and artificial. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Let's first go for the natural mode. And we will see that in all, whether it is natural or artificial, basically what is happening is fragmentation and regeneration. How? Let's see. How many of you have seen both of you, have you seen a rose plant?
Yes, sir.
And how do you think a rose plant is germinated? Have you seen any seeds, rose seeds ever?
No, sir.
No. So how does a rose plant propagates or germinates or grows?
On its stem, we can cut the stem and put in the water so it can regenerate its roots.
Okay.
Then we can put the stem again in the soil so it can grow the plant.
Yes, perfect. And in fact, you do not even have to put it in water. Just cut the stem and directly put it in the soil and pour water on the soil. Right? It just need moisture and nutrients to grow its roots from stem. So you just cut a stem from the rows, and rows are bushy plants, right? They have multiple stems and branches. So you cut any one, put it in soil, and you will see that it developed roots and it is flourishing now. New buds and new branches starts coming out of it. Correct, Zed?
Yes.
So basically, what are we doing? Are we not fragmenting the plant first? Just like an
Yeah.
hydra, correct? We are making fragments of the plant, correct? And that fragment, we are putting it in soil, and that fragment is regenerating the parts which it did not have. Like a stem do not have roots. So it regenerated roots and became a whole new another organism, another plant. Does it make sense, Hiba? Hiba, make sense to you or not? That vegetative,
Sir.
yes. So do you agree that vegetative propagation is nothing but fragmentation and regeneration in a plant context?
Sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay, so first write down the types of natural vegetative propagation. Write down. In natural vegetative propagation occurs when, write down, natural vegetative propagation occurs when the plants grow and develop naturally. The plants grow and develop naturally without any human interference. The plant grows and develop naturally. Just add one more thing. I'm so sorry. The plant grows and develop naturally through asexual modes, without any human interference. Okay. Is the definition clear?
Yes, sir.
So the only criteria is there should not be any human interference. So they should do it at their own. So if there is no human interference, who will cut, who will fragment? Tell me.
No
So
one.
in these cases, the plant has to find another way to regrow from the lost parts. Now, the one very common example of natural vegetative propagation is, write down A, through leaves. Through leaves. Now, through leaves, what I mean is, we discussed. Okay, how many of you both have NCERT right now in front of you?
Sir, I don't have.
Sir, you don't have NCERT?
Yeah.
Hiba, do you have NCERT? Yes or no?
No, sir.
No, okay, fine. So from next time onwards, keep an NCERT handy with you, okay? Because I will ask you to go to certain pages, or I will try to put those diagrams here from next time onwards. But you will see in your NCERT the example for a bryophyllum leaf, right? In a bryophyllum leaf, at the edges, notches of the leaf, there are small structures that grow. Okay, so this is a bryophyllum leaf. At the very edge, these are the structures that grow. Okay, is it clear? Until this leaf is attached to the plant makes these leaf fall, get detached and fall on the ground. So they fall on the ground, and each of these bud-like structures then develop into a new plant. Okay, is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So here they did not need any human interference. So you do not need humans to pluck that leaf and put it in the soil. Plant can just shed leaves on its own, correct? And this is what it
Yes.
does. So through leaves, write down leaves of a few plant like bryophyllum, leaves of a few plant like bryophyllum gets detached from the parent, gets detached from the parent and develop into a new plant and develop into a new plant after falling in the soil and develop into new plant after falling in the soil. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. So this is one natural way to vegetatively propagate without any human interference. Can you think of any other way? So this was through leaves. Can you think of a way through, let's say, roots?
So they develop tubers.
Yes, perfect. They develop tubers. And what about tubers?
Uh,
Which, any example?
an example is I'm not getting. I think potato.
Exactly, the most common vegetable, the vegetable of which can just fit in every dish. Potato grows naturally through vegetative propagation through tubers. You will see this if anyone at home have very old potatoes. So sometimes you bring potatoes, especially in the monsoon season. If you bring potatoes and you do not utilize it, and their potatoes do not get, like, they do not rot very fast, right? They can stay there, they start drying and rotting very slow. So sometimes you bring in potatoes and you can use it for 2-3 weeks, correct? They are not like fresh green vegetables, they can be kept like onions. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
But sometimes you will see that on a potato you will see small root like structures coming out, bud and then root like structures coming out, that are called tubers. So potatoes, if you just throw a potato in the soil without any human interference, it can grow tubers and it can propagate into a new potato plant, right?
Yes.
So write down uh, some plants develop some plants develop okay, what is potato itself? Potato, which part of plant is potato? Root, leaves, stem, what?
Roots.
No, potato is a stem. Okay,
Stems.
that's why it develops roots. Make sense, Zed?
Yes, sir.
Write it down somewhere. Potato itself is a stem of a plant. It's a modified stem which is modified to store food in the form of starch. That's why we eat potato. There is something which looks very similar to potato called sweet potato. You know that? Sweet potato? Hiba?
Yes.
Hiba, are you aware of potato and sweet potato?
Yes, sir.
Potato is a stem, but sweet potato is a root. Write it down. This also comes in entrance and people often get confused. Both look like roots, but they are not. Sweet potato is a true root, whereas potato is a stem. Okay. Now come back to this. What did I say? What did I say? Did I say anything for this? Have I started the definition? I said something, no? Uh, some plants, write down, some plants develop swollen and modified roots. Some plants develop swollen and modified roots called tubers. Called tubers. Write down buds. New buds are formed. New buds are formed as tubers at the base of a stem. At the base of a stem. Is it clear, everyone?
Yes.
Now that stem is potato. So at the base of it, there will be new tubers forming, and then they will grow into a whole new plant. Okay, cool.
Okay.
So this is naturally through a naturally vegetative propagation through a root. Now let's come to through stem. Anything that you know can naturally, without any human interference, grow through stem?
Bulbs like
Bulbs.
onions. Yeah.
What are onions? Again,
Onions.
onions are what part of a plant?
They are stem.
Onions are not stem. Hiba, would you like to try? What are onions?
Roots. Yeah.
The roots.
Let's draw an onion then. When you both, just give me 1 second. 1 second, everyone. Yes, think about what is onion. Hiba said root and you said stem. Am I audible? Hello, am I audible? Hello, 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 hello. Am I audible, Zed?
Yeah.
Yes. Let's draw an onion. What does an onion looks like? So the one which we get from market looks something like this. Correct? Right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So what is this discoid part at the top of onion? Have you seen that if you keep onion for a few days at your home or few weeks, you start developing structures like this from an onion?
I think they are roots.
Yes, so they are roots, which means this discoid small part at the tip, which we cut and remove from when we are making vegetables, this is a modified stem. In this case, in the case of onion, the stem is discoid and reduced. Write it down. It is asked in NEET. In case of onion, the stem is discoid, disc-like or discoid, and reduced, which means very tiny. Stems normally are very large, like elongated, correct? They are long structures. But in onion, it's like a disc. So this is stem and this is root. So what is onion? Onion is a leaf, okay? You know, have you seen a green onion? Raw
Yes.
onion? So if you see these green parts are here, right? Like this. And then this part is white in a raw onion. Over time, when it gets ripened, we cut this and this part becomes reddish, right? Correct?
Yeah.
Or it stays white. Even big onions are whitish or reddish, both. But we cut the top part. So the whole onion, how many of you have peeled an onion? You both must have, right? What happens when you peel an onion? Hiba, have you peeled an onion?
Yes, sir.
What happens when you peel an onion? What happens when you peel an onion? You keep peeling its layer and same thing. You remove one layer, there is another inside. You remove that also, there is another inside. Do you reach anywhere? No. It's all just layers of leaf, right? So onion is a modified leaf. Do you get it, Hiba?
Yes, sir.
It's all leaf wrapped one over the other in layers. So write down onion is a leafy structure. So through stem, it's not onion. Which one do you think is through stem? Now tell me, Zed, through stem. Shall I remove this onion or let it be here? I'll just make a part. It's not a part of stem that we're discussing. This was just to tell you what is onion. So through stems, normally there are many plants that grow through stem. For example, there is one plant called water hyacinth. That's there in your NCRT. So what happens if you have to grow through stem? Basically, see, you have to just understand that vegetative propagation is a way by which a plant is just spreading and increasing its number, correct? If it is doing it naturally. So if it is doing through leaves, it will just detach the leaves and the leaves will contain something special, a bud-like structure that will fall on ground and develop into a new plant. If it is through roots, then that root should be modified into something called tubers, which can just grow and give rise to another plant. Again, if it is through stem, the stem also has to just grow. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So we call them, these stems, we call them runner stems. So what happens is there's a plant. Let's say this is the soil, inside is the root, this is the stem, and this is the plant. So it will develop a horizontal stem. Stems are normally vertical, going up like this, right? Stems. They always go outside the ground, correct or not?
Yes, sir.
Now, if you develop a horizontal stem, so what you can do is you can parallelly increase the plant's area and then it will reach somewhere and get into the ground. A new root will develop and a new plant will develop. Is it clear? So this part is called a runner stem because it's running from one position to another position to make another plant. Is it clear? They are horizontal. So they are called runners because they are running away from the actual plant. So write down in stem, runner stems grow horizontally. Runner stems grow horizontally above the ground and give rise to new buds at their nodes through which nodes through which new plant is developed. Clear, both of you? Is there any more?
Yes, sir.
So naturally it can happen through stem, through root, through leaves without any human interference. But this is limited. All plants cannot do this. But humans figured out that, okay, if a plant is not doing it naturally, we can make that plant do it forcefully. By forcefully means we have to be the external factor and cut some parts of the plant that are capable of regenerating. Like in rose, right? Rose naturally does not grow through cutting its stem and throwing it somewhere else. We do that. Naturally, it must be growing through runner stems or runner stems, right? But it takes time. Do you understand, both of you?
Yes.
Yeah. Zed mentioned a structure. So let me also cover that because that is not important from board's point of view, but from entrance. What did you say, Zed? Bulbs, right? You used a word called bulbs.
Yeah.
What do you understand by bulbs as in structure? Bulbs are roots, stems, or leaves, or something different.
Leaves.
What are it?
They're leaves.
Sorry?
Leaves. They're underground leaves. Yeah. Or we can
Yes.
say underground stems.
They are, no, you are right. They are underground stems on which leaves are attached. So leaves are a part of the bulb. The formation of bulb happen because of leaves which are attached to an underground stem. So the stem is underground, but the leaves come out of the ground and there is a bulb formation, right?
Yes, sir.
So it is slightly different from all the other three because see, these three, leaves, roots, and stem, are purely independent. So leaf is independent. One leaf falls on ground and develops. Root is through swollen and modified roots as a structure. Stem is through horizontal runner stems. Okay. Bulb is something different. So first write down about bulb. Write down. Bulbs are structures that have. Bulbs are structures that have an underground stem, that have an underground stem to which leaves are attached. Underground stems to which leaves are attached. Now the special thing about bulbs is that these leaves are fleshy. What do I mean to say fleshy? By fleshy, is that?
They are like they contain water.
They store something.
They store. They store.
If it's not water, it can be food also. It can be starch also. So they are not like leaves that we see on the trees, you know, very thin paper like leaves. No, they are very fleshy leaves. Have you seen aloe vera?
Yes, sir.
As a plant, both of you have seen aloe vera plant.
Hmm.
What is that structure, the aloe vera, which we use, where that gel is? What is it? Is it a stem, a root, or a leaf?
Modified leaf.
Yes, it's a fleshy modified leaf. Okay, Hiba? Make sense to you? Aloe vera is a fleshy modified leaf. Similarly, write down these leaves continue in bulbs. These leaves are capable of storing food. These leaves are capable of storing food. And from where does this vegetative propagation happen? So write down in the center of the bulb. In the center of the bulb, there is an apical bud. So are you understanding why bulbs are special structures? Because first there is an underground stem, okay, on top of which there is leaves attached, and those leaves are modified swollen leaves to store food. So they are like onions, right? You understand? Onion is a fleshy modified leaf to store food, correct? Keep saying yes or no. I should know you are with me. So it's like that. And in the center, there will be a apical bud. So exactly, if you see an onion, you keep opening an onion. In the very center of that onion, you will see there is a bud, an apical bud. If it is a very raw onion, it's very evident. So write down, in the center, there is an apical bud that produces. So in bulbs, there are two things over which they ask you an entrance. First, there is an apical bud, which is in the center. An apical bud gives rise to, write down, leaves and flowers. These two structures are developed from apical bud. Is it clear, both of you?
Yes, sir.
Then there is something called lateral bud. Some bulbs also contain lateral buds, but lateral buds give rise to branches and stem and branches, which together we call both of them as shoot. Remember, shoot and root.
Yes, sir.
So if there is an apical bud in the bulb, it will give rise to leaves and flowers. And if there is a lateral bud, it will give rise to stem and branches. Is it clear? So these are the four ways by which natural vegetative propagation can happen. Okay, both of you?
Yes, sir.
Now, another important part is artificial. Any doubt in natural? Shall I move forward?
Yes, sir.
So now I come to artificial vegetative propagation. Artificial means which we are doing, which humans are doing. So basically we'll be studying about 4 things here, which are also in NCERT. We'll be studying about cutting. So today I'll introduce you to all of them, but we'll take it in detail in the next class. Okay. Cutting, grafting, we have some 7 minutes left. Cutting, grafting. Third is layering. Have you read these terms in school yet?
Yes, sir. In 6th or 7th, like, yeah,
6th or 7th class.
maybe.
Yeah, but basic things. Okay. And tissue culture. Tissue culture is the one we will focus in detail because it's also important for entrances. It's a more complex thing. But cutting, grafting, and layering is, you also must have studied about this in primary, or not primary, but after primary classes. I think in 9th also you study about vegetative propagation, but not in detail, right? So tell me, what do you understand by cutting, grafting, and layering? Today let's discuss the basics of these and write down that this is a home assignment. Home assignments or in-class assignments are for you to do and make notes in your copy. They are not for submitting it to me. For submitting, we give different assignments after the class. Okay. Understood, both of you, Vibha and Zed?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay, cutting. What do you mean by cutting? It's very simple. Cutting is cutting. Like Zed said. What do you? Yes, Zed.
The same
Yes.
example.
Just cut a stem and put it in the soil.
The soil and
That's cutting. That's cutting, right? Simple. Grafting.
Grafting, like,
What does the
like,
word graft means? Okay, before going into grafting.
attach.
No, what does the word graft means? Have you heard of the term skin graft? Plastic surgery? You must have heard.
taking out like skin, like, we can
From where? That's the catch. Skin grafting is where we take a part of skin from somewhere else and attach it somewhere else, right?
Yes, sir.
We call it plastic surgery or skin grafting or grafting surgeries. Similarly, in grafting, we are cutting a part of plant. Mostly that part is a stem or a branch, but we are not putting it in the soil. So where are we putting it? On another plant. Okay.
Yes.
That's called grafting. A part of one plant grafted on another plant. Now, why we do that? What is the advantage? What is the disadvantage? All that detail we'll do in next class. But you understand what is cutting and what is grafting?
Yeah.
Third is layering. Anyone heard of layering from your primary classes?
So like we took the example of
Horizontal stem.
horizontal stem.
Yes.
They go in the ground and they form a plant
Yes.
again.
So layering is just utilizing the same concept of vegetative propagation through stem or branch, but we are forcefully doing it here. So we are by force bringing a stem down, a branch down, and putting it in the soil. We are not cutting it. It is still attached to the tree, but it is lower down and half a portion of it is inside the soil and a portion is still coming out. You understand? So there's a tree and there's a branch, and that branch is very close. It has to be very close to ground. So if it is a mango tree, which is a very big tree, and the branch is like, let's say 20 foot high, you cannot, take that branch and put it in the soil. Can you do that? It will not be flexible, right? So layering can be done only for plants that are bushy, shorter, and have flexible stems and branches, right, Zed?
Yes.
Simple? Yes. So what we do is basically we pull one branch down and we put it in the ground and cover it with soil. Some part of it should still peek out of the soil and some part should be inside the soil. So the part which is inside the soil develops roots and a new plant grows. exactly like what was happening in a runner stamp, correct? Here. So this was natural and this layering is artificial. Clear? Makes sense to both of you?
Yeah.
Yes. So this is your in-class assignment before you come back for the next class on Wednesday. Do read cutting, grafting, and layering, and also if you can tissue culture. We will finish artificial mode in the next class so that asexual mode will be over, and then we will start with the sexual mode. So shall we go with the sexual mode in plants first, and then we'll go to animals and humans?
Okay. Sir.
Okay. Is it okay for you, Hiba?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. So any questions for today's class? I'll then declare today's class.
Sir, is tissue culture used in making the heart? Like I have heard somewhere, like
Heart.
for making artificial hearts.
Yes, that's called making organoids.
Organs.
Tissue culture, I'll tell you why we call it culture and why we call it tissue culture in the next class. How about it? Let's keep it in the next class. Very interesting. Okay. Anything else from today's class? No? Okay. Then see you on Wednesday, everyone. Both of you. Bye bye. Take care.
Thank you, sir.
Keep revising and do the assignment.